In this video, we're going to be comparing the Samsung Galaxy A21s versus the Samsung Galaxy A20s. Both devices feature 6.5-inch displays. Both phones also feature 720p displays. With the A21s, we're getting a PPI of 270 compared to a PPI of 264 with the A20s. And with the A21s, we're getting a 20:9 aspect ratio compared to a 19.5:9 aspect ratio with the A20s. So the A21s is technically a bit taller and more narrow compared to the A20s. Now you can see when holding these two phones up next to each other, they're about the same size. But since the A21s has a smaller bottom bezel compared to the A20s, we do have extra space for that taller display. Now, one big difference between these two phones is up top here. So with the A21s, we have a hole punch for the front-facing camera compared to a water drop notch for the front-facing camera for the A20s. Now, the A21s's front-facing camera is 13 megapixels compared to 8 megapixels with the A20s. Now, internally, there's quite a few differences as well. The A21s features 64 gigabytes of internal storage compared to 32 gigabytes of internal storage with the A20s. So we are getting half the amount of internal storage here with the A20s compared to the A21s. Now, both devices do feature microSD card expansion, so if you do need more space, you do have the ability to expand it with either of these two phones. Now, neither of these two devices feature wireless charging, but they both feature fingerprint sensors on the back, so let's give those a try right now. So we'll start off here with the A21s, so that was very fast, and then now the A20s. And that was very quick as well. In addition to having fingerprint sensors on the back, both devices also support face unlock. So you do have multiple methods to access the phones. Now there are some pretty major differences when it comes to the camera modules on the rear. So with the A21s, we do have a quad camera setup. So we have a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. Compared to the A20s, we have a 13 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera. So essentially with the A21s, we're gaining the macro camera, and then we're also getting a higher amount of megapixels for the main camera. And both devices support portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras. Now, as far as the RAM and processor go, there are some very major differences between these two phones. So with the A21s, we have 4 gigabytes of RAM. And with the A20s, we have 3 gigabytes of RAM. And with the A21s, we have the Samsung Exynos 850 processor, compared to the Qualcomm Snapdragon 450 with the A20s. Now expect the A21s to perform better due to it having more RAM and a more powerful processor. Now video recording with both devices maxes out at 1080p at 30 FPS with both the front and rear cameras. With the A21s, we're getting a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, and we're getting a slightly smaller battery at 4,000 milliamp hours with the A20s. So expect to get better battery life with the A21s as well. But now that we've gone over the major specifications of both devices, let's now compare the hardware. So I already talked quite a bit about the front panels here on both phones. Essentially with the A21s, we're getting that hole punch for the front-facing camera, compared to the water drop notch with the A20s. And then down at the bottom here, we do have a slightly thinner bottom bezel with the A21s. Now both phones do feature an all plastic build, minus the displays, which are glass. And taking a look at the left side of both devices, they both have the slot for the microSD card and SIM card. And then with the A20s, we have the volume up and volume down buttons. Then taking a look at the right side of both phones, with the A21s, we have the volume up, volume down, and we have the power button. And then with the A20s, we just have the power button. Then taking a look at the top of both devices, they both have the noise canceling microphone. And then taking a look at the bottom of both phones, we have pretty much the same exact setup as both phones do have a speaker. They both have a USB-C port for charging and data transfer. They both have the 3.5mm headphone jack, and they both have the microphone. And then taking a look at the back side of both devices, we do have similar yet different designs. With the camera module with the A21s, it is in a rectangular form factor here, and it is a quad camera setup, compared to a bean pod format with the A20s. And then both phones have the fingerprint sensor and Samsung logos. Now both phones do feature reflective backs. However, with the A21s, we have more of a rainbow tint to it, compared to the A20s where we're getting a wavier look. But this is the Samsung Galaxy A21s. versus the Samsung Galaxy A20s.